How do you run fuel lines on a bay window bus? We're gonna find out. First, the beer of the day today is Texas Blonde from Wild Acre Brewing in Fort Worth, Texas. Alright, so the fuel outlet on the tank is located over on the right hand side attached to this line here. The spot I'm thinking for the pump is going to be over here on the left. So we're going to have to obviously get this guy out of the way. Pull the circular bracket off and kind of make a new plate for this pump to mount onto that. Alright, now that we've got a little better access in here, you can kind of see the bracket we're going to pull off. Alright, so with that pulled off, we can make a plate. See if we can't get this guy to sit in here right where we want it. And so I got it mounted, but I don't know how I feel about how loose the soft mounts are. I have to figure out something a little bit better to get it, held in place. Alright, so there's the pump mounted up. This bolt that holds the pump onto the bracket that I made was fouling against this bracket that's welded to the frame. So I just put a nut in between the bracket that I made and then the other bracket, just to kind of kick it out a little bit. I'm going to come back and pull it all apart and paint the bracket, but I think that's going to work for what we're doing here. Screws that came with the fuel pump, the fuel pressure regulator were a little bit too short, so I'm throwing some longer ones in there. And for an added precaution, I'm just adding a little bit of blue thread locker. So that's gonna take care of that, I believe. Alright, there's a regulator in place. Like I said, all we're going to do is run a line from the pump up through this here, out of the grommet, and then up into the pump, come over here into a T, and then go to the carbs. All this is 5/16 steel brake line that I'm just going to use to run from the outlet on the tank over to the pump. Alright, so there's my hard line. I'm going to be running from side to side. Tying on these old rubber hoses from an old fuel line just to secure the new metal line in place using the factory retainers. And that should hold it right where I want it. See the line there? Using the factory retainers there. Okay, so on this line here, I did have to bend the hard line down just a hair in order to get it to line up with that secondary fuel filter. And then on the fuel side, where the fuel comes out of the tank, I trimmed the hard line down a little bit so that I could put my primary filter right there. And I like to run my primary filter right out of the tank. That way the filter isn't pressurized. And then on the fuel return line, which on fuel injected buses, you have two outlets on the fuel tank. The one facing the engine is the return line. But since I'm running carburetors, that's not an issue. I just stuck a bolt in it and capped it off. So every brass fitting is going to get a coating of this Permatex Forma gasket. It's oil and gas resistant, so it looks like it's going to be the best choice to seal those fittings, make sure they don't leak. So instead of running a hard line through the firewall, I decided to go with a bulkhead fitting with a 90-degree brass fitting on the back side, just because there's a pretty tight fit back there, and I couldn't really find a good place to run a hard line through it. So it's going to be soft line on the back going to the fuel pump, and then soft or hard line going up to the fuel pressure regulator. I haven't decided yet. I am going to thread in this 90-degree fitting first before I put it in the bus. That way I can have it clocked the way I want when the bulkhead fitting does go in. Let's see, I got the bulkhead fitting installed. There's the inlet out there. That's going to be kind of tricky getting a hose clamp on. I didn't think of that ahead of time, but we'll improvise. So we got the fittings all installed onto the fuel pump filter, and then I got the little adapter that I made drying, painted that. I'm about to take these two fittings, 5/16 inlet, 1/4 inch outlet, going on to the regulator. So that's really it, man. Just a line to the main filter, hard line going all the way across, down here into the secondary filter, through the pump, around that with plenty of clearance, don't have to worry about that hitting, through the firewall, up into the regulator, and then I've just got that tied off because the engine's not in. I'll worry about that, running those lines to the carbs once the engine's in place. I have a couple more things to do before the engine can go in. Once that happens, we can start wiring up the fuel system, like wiring in the pump, the relay, hooking up all the electronics, and seeing if it works. That's going to be the best part. So if you want to see that, please subscribe. Check out the other video when we brought the bus home. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.